12,000 years ago, something happened that science still cannot fully explain. This video covers the catastrophic event at the end of the last ice age, what the geological record says it destroyed, what may be sitting under 120 meters of ocean, and why the scientific argument around it is more alive right now than it has ever been. Start with what nobody disputes. When the last ice age was at its peak, the oceans sat roughly 400 feet lower than they do today, and the continents looked nothing like the maps we grew up with. Every coastline extended further out, sometimes by hundreds of miles, exposing river valleys, plains, and forests that are now seafloor. The total land area above water during that period that has since been swallowed by rising seas is estimated at around 27 million square kilometers, which is roughly the surface area of Africa. Gone. Submerged. And the people who lived during that era, well-established populations across multiple continents, lived along those coastlines, the way humans always have. Sea levels then climbed approximately 120 meters over several thousand years, with peak rise rates exceeding 1 meter per century. Fast enough that someone living on the coast during those worst phases would have watched the waterline advance within their own lifetime. This is not contested science. The sea level data is solid, preserved in coral records and sediment cores and ice. What remains open is the question of what was actually sitting on those coastlines when the water came. In late 2022, Netflix released a documentary series called Ancient Apocalypse, presented by journalist and author Graham Hancock, and the Society for American Archaeology responded by issuing an open letter, calling on Netflix to reclassify it as science fiction. The series became one of the most watched documentary programs on the platform that year, which tells you something about where public appetite sits on this subject. Hancock's central argument, developed across multiple books beginning in 1995, runs like this. An advanced civilization existed during the Ice Age. A catastrophic event around 12,000 years ago destroyed it, and virtually all the physical evidence now lies on those submerged continental shelves under as much as 120 meters of water. His critics, who are numerous and credentialed, counter that the underwater shelves have been surveyed, and what those surveys turn up is not the ruins of an advanced culture, but the scattered traces of hunter-gatherers, exactly what the standard timeline predicts. No cities, no metallurgy, no writing, no monuments beyond those already found and dated. Hancock's counter is a principle that archaeologists themselves use. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and the 27 million square kilometers of submerged real estate most relevant to this question has barely been examined. That is where the argument lives, and it is worth paying attention to because underneath the popular debate at the geological layer, something genuinely strange sits in the record. Consider what the data shows about 12,900 years ago. The Earth had been warming, the great ice sheets retreating, temperatures climbing. And then, within the span of a single year or less, temperatures in central Greenland dropped between 9 and 14 degrees Celsius. The cold held for approximately 1,200 years, and then, in what geologists describe as less than a few decades, and possibly less than a few years, temperatures swung back up by 5 to 10 degrees. This event is called the Younger Dryas, named, somewhat incongruously, after a small white Arctic flower that rebloomed across Europe when the cold returned. The Younger Dryas itself is not a hypothesis. Ice cores preserve it, sediment records confirm it, geological strata worldwide show it. What remains contested is the cause. The conventional explanation points to the warming process destabilizing the enormous ice sheets of North America and Scandinavia, releasing catastrophic floods of glacial meltwater into the North Atlantic, disrupting the thermohaline circulation, the ocean current system that regulates global temperatures, and triggering the cold snap. That explanation has solid evidentiary backing. But here's the thing, At the precise onset of the Younger Dryas, researchers have identified 6 major geological disruptions appearing simultaneously across 3 separate, geographically isolated ice systems. The Laurentide in North America, the Fennoscandian covering northern Europe and Greenland, the Mackenzie River flood, the collapse of Lake Agassiz, catastrophic outburst flooding from the Baltic Ice Lake, destabilization of the Greenland ice shelf. All of it at approximately the same moment across systems that should have had no direct mechanical connection to each other. One researcher described it as difficult to explain the triggering of such widespread synchronous changes at the margins of 3 relatively isolated northern hemisphere ice sheets by invoking conventional climatic and paleoceanographic processes. That difficulty is what a team led by nuclear physicist Richard Firestone published a paper about in 2007 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Their proposal was that one or more large, low-density extraterrestrial objects, fragments of a comet, exploded over northern North America approximately 12,900 years ago, and that the shockwave, thermal pulse, and resulting fires contributed to the ice sheet destabilization, the onset of Younger Dryas cooling, and the mass extinction of large animals across the Western Hemisphere. This became known as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. The evidence they pointed to centered on a thin, carbon-rich black layer found at approximately 50 archaeological sites across North America, all dated to around 12,900 years ago. Above that layer, no mammoths, no mastodons, no horses, no camels, no Clovis artifacts, nothing. Below it, all of the above. The geochemical signatures found within that layer, excess platinum, magnetic microspherules, nanodiamonds, quench-melted glass, appeared not just in North America, but in Greenland, Syria, and Chile. What the evidence at Murray Springs, Arizona, showed is the detail that tends to stay with people. Excavations there uncovered still articulated mammoth bones with a hearth beside them, and Clovis tools arranged nearby, all of it sitting directly beneath the black mat, sealed as if mid-activity. The geologist C. Vance Haynes described it by saying the sudden extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna would be dramatically revealed by the fact that all of them were gone an instant before the black mat was deposited. At least 35 mammal genera have vanished from North America at or near that boundary. Mammoths, mastodons, ground sloths, horses, camels, dire wolves, American lions, short-faced bears, and the disappearance has been described in the literature as geologically instantaneous, essentially catastrophic. The black mat has since been identified at more than 100 sites across 4 continents, and the difficulty for critics is not any single marker within it, but what researchers have called the synchronicity, the way dozens of distinct A comprehensive 2023 refutation in Earth Science Reviews described it as self-contradictory and inconsistent, and noted that it sometimes defied the laws of physics. No confirmed impact crater dating to the Younger Dryas boundary has been located. A 2025 study led by volcanologist Charlotte Green found that the platinum spike, one of the core pieces of proposed evidence, arrived 45 years after the onset of the Younger Dryas, not simultaneously with it, and persisted for 14 years in a pattern inconsistent with a single instantaneous impact event. Green's team traced it instead to sustained volcanic eruptions in Iceland. A 2025 paper by James Kennett, documenting shocked quartz at classic Clovis sites, generated considerable attention when published, and the journal retracted it in 2026. That is the case against it, and it is not a weak case. And yet the 2021 review of cumulative research published in the same journal, Earth Science Reviews, concluded that after 14 years of independent investigation by multiple research teams, the evidence for a major cosmic impact at this time should be accepted, and called for possible elevation of the hypothesis to the status of a scientific theory. Within months of the initial 2007 publication, two researchers labeled it a Frankenstein monster, and by 2011, the same group had written what they called its requiem. 14 years later, peer-reviewed publications supporting it were still appearing regularly. This is what a genuinely contested scientific hypothesis looks like. Not resolved, not fringe, but unfinished. Both sides hold credentialed published positions, and the data has not yet settled the matter. Now set the impact debate aside entirely and look at what was being built on the other side of the Younger Dryas. In 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt was working through the hills of southeastern Turkey when local villagers guided him to a site they had long considered sacred, and what he found there upended the established timeline of human civilization. Göbekli Tepe. T-shaped limestone pillars, some standing over 16 feet tall and weighing up to 50 tons, arranged in circular formations and covered in carvings of lions, scorpions, foxes, vultures, and snakes. Multiple enclosures built across phases of construction spanning at least 1,500 years, and then deliberately buried by whoever built them, sealed under tons of rubble, left untouched for 12,000 years until Schmidt's excavations began. The problem Göbekli Tepe creates for the standard model is not its age in isolation. The problem is its age relative to everything else. Its earliest structures date to approximately 9,600 BCE, and the first evidence of agriculture in the surrounding region dates to at least 1,000 years after that. Constructing those enclosures would have required hundreds of coordinated workers, fed, housed, organized across generations toward a shared purpose, and the organizational complexity that implies appears in the record before the agricultural surplus that supposedly made such complexity possible. The standard model said civilization required farming. Göbekli Tepe existed before farming. Less than 5% of the site had been excavated as of 2021, and its builders' decision to deliberately bury their own structures remains unexplained. Schmidt spent years speculating that the buried floors might reveal the site's true purpose. He died in 2014 without knowing. What the site does, regardless of interpretation, is position itself precisely at the temporal boundary of this entire conversation. Built in the centuries immediately following the end of the Younger Dryas by people who came through whatever that period had been. Here is where the threads converge. Approximately 12,900 years ago, temperatures in Greenland collapsed by up to 14 degrees within a single year, and the cold that followed lasted 12 centuries. At least 35 genera of large animals disappeared from North America alone. The Clovis culture, the most geographically widespread archaeological tradition in the Americas, ceased appearing in the record above a thin black layer of carbon-rich sediment that shows up on 4 continents. Sea levels were already climbing fast enough that coastal populations faced a steadily advancing waterline within their own lifetimes. And then, in the immediate aftermath of all of it, a group of people in southeastern Turkey arranged 50-ton stones into geometric circles, according to a plan that researchers, using computer modeling, traced to an equilateral triangle stretched between 3 enclosures before those people had invented agriculture. The mainstream position holds that this picture fits within the existing framework. Hunter-gatherers were more capable than previously assumed. The extinctions had multiple overlapping causes. The synchronous geological disruptions reflect processes still being understood, and the absence of Ice Age civilizational evidence reflects the absence of Ice Age civilization rather than a gap in the search. That position is held by most professional archaeologists, and it is not unreasonable. The alternative position holds that the most logical place any coastal civilization would have existed, the coastlines humans have always preferred, is now sitting under 120 meters of ocean, and the systematic survey of those shelves is only now becoming technically possible. What was lost there, if anything was lost, would not yet be findable. Göbekli Tepe's builders sealed their own work under tons of earth and walked away, and nobody knows why. The site sat beneath an unremarkable hill in Turkey, while every civilization that came after, Sumer, Egypt, Greece, Rome, rose and collapsed and was replaced by something else. Local people considered the hill sacred for as long as collective memory reached back. They did not know what was inside it, only that it was old and that it mattered. That instinct turned out to be correct. What it actually contains and what it represents about the people who built it is still being answered. The geological record of those centuries, 12,900 years ago, to the edge of recorded history, holds more unanswered questions than most people realize, and the place most likely to answer them is underwater, unexcavated, and waiting. If this kind of history is what you're here for, subscribe to the Luster Archive. We follow the archaeological record to where the evidence gets genuinely strange, not to hand you conclusions, but to show you where the real questions are.